Hey guys, what's up? And today I'm going to do a review on another 2017, not album, but a movie. A movie that I love a lot and I anticipate a lot, and it is Logan. So, Logan is basically the final chapter of the Wolverine storyline of X-Men, or to be more precise, it's actually technically the final chapter of X-Men, but if you count Deadpool, then it still has a future, I guess. But chronologically, Logan is technically the the final chapter of X-Men, and that's what makes the movie so heartbreaking and tragic and just cold and dark and grim. And X-Men could have ended off in a very over the top and explosive and all people joining forces and a giant ending, but no. Logan ended in such a painful and sad way. It's it's so authentic, it's so real, but it's also really painful. So basically on this movie it takes place like 50 years from now or something. And Logan is this really old, bitter and angry person, and he's sick. He cripples around, and when he got hurt, like he's really hurt, he doesn't heal as quickly as he was in the past. And Charles Xavier is also a very sick old man, and there's something about Charles Xavier that makes him a little bit more hopeful and optimistic, but he's also very old and sick and tired. They have seen some shit, and in that movie, the world really sucks. There's nothing good happening. The only thing that matters is to survive, and yeah, apparently there's not much purpose in life anymore. So right from the beginning of the movie, it's already really depressing. And then Charles Xavier and Logan stumble upon a girl who is X-23, amazingly portrayed by Daphne Keane, and there were bad guys chasing after this girl. So Logan and Charles Xavier at last decided to help her go to a specific location where she and a bunch of other kids that has superpowers that are mutants, they will meet up in a specific location. So, yeah, Logan didn't even want to help her at first, but after a lot of convincing from Charles Xavier, they helped X-23 or Lauren to get there. And that's pretty much the only purpose they have in life at that moment. So, first of all, I want to tell you how brutal and gross this movie is, which is one of the things that makes this movie so beautiful and heartfelt. It's kind of ironic, but it's true. This movie is rated R, and it is rated R because it is R for restricted, of course, but also R for reality, R for realism. It is so real because of all the swear words, all the gore and violence, and speaking of swear words, Logan, like I'm gonna say Logan instead of Wolverine because he's not even Wolverine anymore. He's just Logan. And Logan and Charles Xavier, they always swear, they always drop the F-bomb, and some people feel a little bit like weirded out by that, but I think they are old, sick, tired, and they're just so grim. So it's actually normal that they swear a lot, and it also makes the movie darker and more painful. And oh my gosh, speaking of violence, this movie is really, really violent. Like the girl Daphne, who Daphne Keane plays, Laura or X-23, there's a scene where she basically cut a guy's head off, and she's this really young girl, and she just holds the head and roll it on the ground in front of the other bad guys, and that is savage as fuck. X-23 is really savage, and she's always angry, and the person who plays her, Daphne Keane, is incredibly talented. She is British, and she speaks Spanish as well, and in that movie she's speaking in Spanish, in Espanol, and she also speaks a bit English in that movie, I guess, but she's really just, she has this angry stare that just frightens you. And this little girl, she's so powerful, she's so explosive and dangerous, and I think this character is freaking amazing. And of course, Logan and Charles Xavier, equally amazing. And the villain is pretty good as well, the people with the guy with the robot arm. So, because of the story, the things in there, the things in the movie, I'm going to give a spoiler alert. Okay, so if you haven't watched Logan, you should probably skip to the end of the spoiler part. Timestamp in the comments. Well, anyway, so for some reason Logan was really sick and he was crippling. Like again, when things, like when he hurted himself, like he doesn't even heal. Like his wounds didn't even heal. So he's really sick and old and tired, and yeah, he didn't even want to help anyone or do anything good. He just wants to live, I guess. You know, like Logan in the surface, he just tells everyone to fuck off, and he doesn't want to help them. He just want to abandon them, and but deep inside of Logan, like Charles Xavier was sick, so he has these like Caesars, I guess, and he sends this psychic shockwave that makes everyone slow down and, you know, can't move and paralyzed. And Logan always help Charles Xavier to not have this shockwave by not have this Caesar by injecting some chemicals into Charles, and Logan is keeping him alive because Charles is the only person that is relatable to Logan, that Logan has. So it's just him and Logan. It's just them plus this girl. And man, and there's this really tragic moment where we learn about that there might be a chance, or maybe I'm just making this up, maybe it's not real, but maybe Charles Xavier killed the other X-Men because of his psychic shock waves. Like there's a scene where the radio basically talked about this psychic shockwave thing, and talked about some X-Men dying, and maybe Charles killed those X-Men. Charles made X-Men, made the organization, founded, but maybe he's also the person who ended it, and that's depressing and tragic. But I don't blame Charles for that. It's just depressing. And my goodness, there's a scene, speaking of psychic shockwaves, there's a scene in the casino and the hotel room where Charles has another psychic shockwave Caesar, and there were people, there were bad guys holding gun and was trying to kill Charles. And Logan immediately went back there, like went back to Charles, and he just killed all these people, all these bad people, one by one. Like he stabbed them in the head, and the claws come in and come out, and then another guy from the brain, and just it's just so brutal, it's so disgusting, and it's beautiful. And then X-23 or Laura also helped him kill a couple guys, and that's brutal, but that's also a really well written, well produced, well edited, well shot. It's just an excellent scene. Oh, and then there's also a scene where it's so fucking tragic. Oh my gosh. So they basically continue to help Laura to get to this location. And on the way, they went into like a farm, and they went into a stranger's place, I guess. And suddenly the bad people came again, and the bad people, they somehow had a Logan clone. They somehow had a Wolverine clone, and it's a really healthy and strong Wolverine. And then Wolverine just walks into that stranger's house and just kills Charles Xavier, stabs him in the heart, and Charles Xavier was really confused, and he just died. He's dead. For over 20 years of X-Men, like, we had been through a lot with him, and he's dead. He's gone. And that's really tragic. Like, and then the real Logan tries to keep him alive, but Charles couldn't make it, and he just passed away. And then there's a scene we see Logan and Laura hand in hand, and they buried Charles Xavier, and it's just painful. It's just so painful to watch. So at the end, it's just Logan and Laura, and Logan helped Laura to get to this imaginary location. It's not even real. Like, Laura was reading this magazine about X-Men, or this comic magazine, I guess, and Logan was like, shh, put this away, it's bullshit, everything is bullshit. Like, this movie kind of makes fun of itself, but in a very bitter and mature way, because this movie is in the X-Men franchise, but it also shits on X-Men and makes it feel so fake, while this Logan is so real. So it's genre breaking, and I love it that way. And at the end, Logan brought Laura to this specific location, and everything was fine. And all these kids gathered up, and they have this chemical that if you injected yourself with that chemical, you would be super strong and super healthy again, but just for a few minutes, I think. And one day, the bad people followed them, and they came again. And then we have this super insane forest fight. So Logan saw all these kids gone, and they were chased by a bunch of bad men, and he, without question, he took the chemical and shot himself with it, and he became the super strong and powerful Logan, Wolverine again. And he just runs into the forest and kills every single bad guy he sees. It's so brutal, and he was so angry. And not that the story is trying to be so cool and epic and grandiose, but you can see how painful and angry he actually is, and it's not a good thing. And he's killing all these people, and suddenly the Wolverine clone comes back, and the chemical wore off, and he was the sick and old Logan again. So he and the Wolverine clone started to fight, and it was painful, and you can clearly see that Logan is losing, and this Wolverine imposter is actually winning, and that's so messed up, and oh my gosh. And at the end, like, Wolverine clone is gonna kill Logan. Like, Logan already lost. He pushed Logan into this tree stump, and this branch just comes out of Logan, and Logan is already dying. And then X-23, or Laura, he has this gun with the adamantine bullet, and he just shoots the Wolverine clone in the head, and the Wolverine clone just blew up, like half of his face just. So yeah, at the end, Laura actually saved Logan from getting killed by Wolverine clone, but it's so ironic. You know, at the end of the movie, the last fight in Logan's life, he actually lost. And he didn't die because of that he actually just lost, and Laura saved him. And that makes Logan actually even more heroic, and the story is even more sad. And at the end, Logan died. And famous last words, and this is what it feels like. And he just died. And Laura holds Logan's hands, and they cried, and she cried, and it was so painful to watch. I really wanted to cry. I didn't cry, but it's, oh my gosh, eyes are wet, man. Eyes are wet. And after all these movies, after all we had been through, Logan takes his final breath, and in his final breath, he finally realizes what peace and love feels like, because for his entire life, since his birth, he had never felt peace or love, because he killed his father, and then he went away with his brother, and all this shit happened, and he is turned into Wolverine, and for his entire life, everything is dark and violent and unjust. And but at this final moment, he finally realizes what love and peace feels like. It's so ironic, but it's also so beautiful. And at the end, he dies. The kids buried him, and they had the cross. But Laura turned the cross 45 degrees so that it becomes an X. No, Logan is not some kind of Christian believer or anything. Logan, there's no faith or hope inside Logan, but he is an X-Men, and nothing changes that. And that's fucking beautiful. So overall, Logan is a very heartfelt, it's a really deep, personal, and intimate movie. A final chapter in the X-Men franchise that really hits all of us in the heart because of how depressing and tragic it is, but at the same time, it's not like Shakespeare kind of tragic and oh, it's so sad. Oh, it actually is deep, it's mature, and it's real, and it's dark. It's real, it's true, and it just grips you in the heart, and it's so painful. Like this movie, it's so hard. It's so hard to enjoy and be entertained because of how dark and personal it is. And wow, this is also the movie that broke the genre of superhero movies. That broke the genre of all X-Men, Marvel, DC, or any other superhero movies because of how real and self-aware and conscious and sincere, but also dark and depressing it is. My gosh, it's such a painful movie to watch. And that's why it's so fucking great. James Mangold did an excellent job in writing and directing this movie, and I really look forward to whatever movie he is doing next, but all the acting performances on this movie is amazing, the directing is amazing, the writing is so... I am saying that Logan is... I really don't know what rating should I give. Mind-blowing would be the rating, but it's not the perfect rating for this movie. It's definitely worth watching, and I'm giving Logan a 9, a 10, almost a 10, a 9 out of 10, and possibly one of the best movies of 2017. So, have you watched Logan? From 1 to 10, how much would you rate it? Like if you like, and subscribe if you want more.